Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with the brazen cyber attack that has shut down the biggest pipeline in the United States, cutting off the flow of gasoline, diesel and jet fuel. Today, the FBI put out a statement pointing the finger at a group of hackers. The FBI says the dark side ransomware is responsible for the compromise of the Colonial Pipeline networks. The hack shut down its entire network Friday afternoon. Today, the company said it hopes to be back online by the end of the week. The Colonial Pipeline supplies fuel from the Gulf Coast to the densely populated eastern and southern United States. DarkSide is a known organized group of hackers, mostly based in Russia. It claims it targets profitable private companies and that its goal is to make money, not create problems for society. In the U.S., most critical infrastructure is owned by private companies, and what's happened reveals the reach and the destabilizing power of ransomware attacks. Jackson Prosco has our top story tonight.
4 days after the hack, this critical supply of U.S. energy remains at a standstill, interrupting the daily flow of 2.5 million barrels of diesel, gasoline, and jet fuel, nearly half the supply of the U.S. East Coast.
It's still the first and largest major disruption of energy infrastructure in the United States that is coming from a cyber problem.
On Friday, hackers broke into Colonial Pipeline's business operations and launched a ransomware attack. The company shut down the pipeline to protect the rest of its computers. The FBI says a Russian cyber gang called DarkSide is to blame. It's not clear if the action was state-sponsored.
At this time, we assess that DarkSide is a criminal actor, but that's certainly something that our intelligence community is looking into.
Ransomware attacks are typically about money, not disruption. Hackers encrypt a victim's computer files so they can't be accessed and demand a hefty payment to unlock them.
These groups are realizing that by targeting industrial companies, they can get higher payouts, and the companies are more willing to pay out because they want to return these vital operations.
The U.S. is reeling from a string of more traditional cyber attacks that have exposed vulnerabilities. A water treatment plant in Florida was hacked in what's believed to have been an attempt to poison the water supply. And the U.S. government is still assessing the damage from the massive SolarWinds data breach. Experts see what happened to Colonial as a warning.
One could, with a malicious intent, turn a routine piece of energy infrastructure into a weapon.
Even if the Colonial hack was just about money, it could cause price hikes and supply shortages if it drags on. It's not known how much money the hackers wanted or if Colonial paid the ransom to unlock its computers. Officially, the White House says it's not getting involved because the hack involves a private company. Donna.
All right, Jackson, thanks. Well, no one knows for sure how often ransoms are paid, but it's believed about $18 billion was paid around the world last year. In Canada, it's estimated $797 million was paid in 2020. Ransom demands have increased significantly in this country. As Mike Le Couteur explains, attackers are also becoming more and more sophisticated.
They probably picked the worst day in our company's history to try and hold us ransom.
Jan Gritskovich and his team were about to submit the largest bid in the company's history. On the morning of April 16th, his employees logged on and realized there was a serious problem with their computer system.
This cell came up and basically said, you've been hacked. If you want to collect your information, basically, here's our email address.
No, they never responded and never found out how much the hackers wanted. Regular backups of their system helped save most of the information, but the delay in submitting that bid may have cost them a multi-million-dollar contract. And cybersecurity specialists say the timing of that attack was likely well planned.
Wouldn't be atypical for an attacker to understand, be reading your email, watching your network activity, and waiting for the moment where it's going to be most painful for you before implementing the ransomware.
Andrew Loshman says hackers are no longer just kids in their parents' basements. They're sophisticated organizations targeting companies and sometimes schools. In 2016, the University of Calgary was one of hundreds of institutions targeted by malware. Administrators paid the $23,000 ransom after realizing the files being held hostage were way too valuable.
People's lives' work were on those desktops, those laptops, and those servers. And to compromise someone's life work we just weren't willing to take that risk.
The FBI eventually charged 2 men in Iran for the University of Calgary attack, but there will always be others. And as so much of our infrastructure in this country is computerized or digital, some warn our public institutions are vulnerable.
They quite often can't afford the resources. So that quite often you'll see a gap in that area where public sector maybe isn't as well protected as private sector.
Now, experts say cyber criminals are always looking for the easiest target, and the best way to protect yourself is to increase your cybersecurity to make it harder for hackers to get in. Mike Le Couteur, Global News, Ottawa.